Now let's get reaction to the summit from Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. The Iraq War veteran is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he joins us from Capitol Hill. Senator, from the very start, you have been, in your own words, deeply skeptical of North Korea's intentions. Now that it's over, what do you think of the summit and the agreement that President Trump and Kim Jong-un signed?
Chris, first, thanks for having me on to discuss this incredible day. I think this was an important first step, but we have to remember it was only a first step. I am skeptical of Kim Jong-un's commitment to denuclearizing North Korea. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating in the months to come. I know Secretary Pompeo has already left for South Korea, and then he'll be in China tomorrow. Now it's time to negotiate the nitty-gritty details of verifiably and irreversibly denuclearizing North Korea. As President Trump himself said, it may not work out, but they had to sit down and have this agreement face-to-face before we could move on to the next phase of our negotiations.
In the agreement, Kim commits to, quote, the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, we'll have to wait and see what he does in terms of North Korea. But are you concerned that he is demanding that on our side that we fold the nuclear umbrella we have had for decades protecting South Korea and Japan?
No, Chris, I'm not concerned that the president would withdraw that umbrella from any of our allies. Kim Jong-un holds the only nuclear weapons that are on the Korean Peninsula, and that's one thing that's such a threat not only to South Korea and Japan and the American citizens and troops stationed there, but to the United States, now that Kim Jong-un has missiles that could reach the United States. So part of the long-standing American policy of nuclear security is that we have a nuclear arsenal to protect ourselves and our allies so they don't feel the need to obtain nuclear weapons. I fear that South Korea and Japan and Taiwan would want to obtain nuclear weapons if we weren't working towards the denuclearization of North Korea.
But, Senator, as part of the deal, you know that President Trump announced that he is going to end joint U.S. military exercises with South Korea. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, Chris, the president said that we're pausing them for the time being. We just had the biggest single exercise each year. Foal Eagle occurs in the spring. That probably won't happen for another 9 or 10 months until the spring of 2019. I think we'll have a pretty good read on whether Kim Jong-un is going to keep his commitments until then. Meanwhile, Secretary Mattis has said he was aware of this decision and he supports the decision. Regular, everyday training exercises will occur. Secretary Mattis wouldn't have supported the decision if he wasn't confident that our troops are going to be fully ready to defend our interest on the Korean Peninsula.
President Trump says that he may start easing sanctions on North Korea even before it ends its entire nuclear program, completely denuclearizes, offering this explanation. Take a look.
I think we will do it as fast as it can be done scientifically, as fast as it can be done mechanically. I don't think, I've read horror stories. It's a 15-year process, okay? Assuming you wanted to do it quickly, I don't believe that. I think whoever wrote that is wrong. But there will be a point at which, when you're 20% through, you can't go back.
As a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, can you explain what that means when you're 20% through, you can't go back?
Well, I don't think that we should relax sanctions in any way until we're far down the path, if not at the end of the road, of North Korea's denuclearization. I think the president was just using that number as an example of the kind of steps that Kim Jong-un needs to take. He'll have to open his country to weapons inspectors. He'll need to make a complete declaration of his nuclear program. Then they'll need to develop steps to remove those nuclear materials and certify that it's denuclearized. The president is right that once you get far enough down that road, it would be very hard to reverse those steps. But we should not relax sanctions up front, Chris. In fact, that's one reason why I always opposed the deal with Iran, because we were relaxing sanctions and we were giving concessions on the front end for easily reversed promises, as opposed to getting concrete action from our adversary and then taking action at the end of that process.
In the meantime, the president says that he is going to maintain his sanctions regime, although he's not going to call it maximum pressure anymore. But he did say that since the negotiations had started, China has eased up on some of its tight controls on activity across the border. It seems that South Korea is anxious to begin trade with North Korea. And the question I have is, has, by normalizing things, appearing here, meeting with President Moon of South Korea, meeting with China, has Kim Jong-un already succeeded to some degree in weakening the maximum pressure campaign, not necessarily by the United States, but by the rest of the world?
No, Chris, I don't think he has. China's always played a double game when it comes to North Korea. On the one hand, saying they want to denuclearize North Korea, but on the other hand, propping up the regime economically, financially, and politically. They really only came to the table over the last 18 months because of the president's approach since last January. The South Korean administration that took office earlier this year simply had a different approach than previous administrations did. The president has done a good job in developing a rapport with President Moon in South Korea and trying to keep a close alliance structure between South Korea, Japan, and the United States to ensure that that pressure campaign continues. And while the president may not want to say it after the summit, I will say it. We need to continue maximum pressure on North Korea until they denuclearize.
Finally, President Trump had a number of very optimistic things to say about where things stand now with North Korea. Here are a few clips.
It's a very great day. It's a very great moment in the history of the world. I have, I think, a very good relationship with Chairman Kim right now. I really do. I mean, you can't ensure anything. All I can say is they want to make a deal.
Senator, do you share President Trump's optimism?
Well, we've certainly broken out of the rut of 25 years of failed U.S. policy towards North Korea. I don't know if Kim Jong-un is going to keep his commitments or not. The president obviously has spent hours with him now, and very few of us have the benefit of that experience. I hope the president is right. But because the Kim regime, both Kim Jong-un and his father and his grandfather, have a long history of duplicity, we need to continue our pressure campaign. We need to hold Kim Jong-un to his commitments. I think we'll find out in a matter of months whether he's willing to keep those commitments.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.